I'm not trying to be inflammatory or agenda post or exaggerate. This Vodyanitsa character needs to be buffed, or at the very least, if she isn't buffed during this beta cycle, which she hopefully will be, this may be one of the least valuable characters you should ever go out of your way to pull for. But alas, I guess I should explain. Hello there, Flip here, and today we're going to be talking all about Vodyanitsa, breaking down how strong her kit is, which it isn't at all, and then go into some of the teams she can be played in. But before we do that, as always, if at any point during the video you are entertained or informed, make sure to drop a like and even consider subscribing, as I talk on various topics regarding Genshin's meta, and I'll try to keep you updated. Shout out to my lovely channel members, I really appreciate your support, it means the world to me. Expect a ton of streams next week, and I don't think I have much else to say, so let's just get right into it. I already discussed Vesna yesterday, so if you're interested in that, go check out that video. But regarding Vodyanitsa, she is adding to the very long list of Hydro Catalyst characters that are HP scaling, and her role in teams is going to be, for one, a healer, on top of having offensive utility through being able to resistant shred for Hydro, Onimo, and Cryo, on top of providing very strong team-wide quills to buff the team's damage. But I'm getting ahead of myself, let's go step by step. Her normal attacks are just that at normal attacks, nothing too special, so let's just move on. And then with her elemental skill, I don't know if Hoyoverse is just afraid to make a character with really good bursts again because of Stygian, but Vodyanitsa is also another character where their entire kit is in their elemental skill. She will first deal an instance of Hydro damage, and then for the next 16 seconds every 3 seconds, she will do a tick of Hydro damage. Because of the way you build her and with her scalings, this damage isn't really that impressive. She consistently does less than 50,000 damage a rotation, but her skill is also going to give a Cryo and Hydro resistant shred, on top of giving you more interruption to resistance and healing you every 1.5 seconds, in which her healing ticks for around 3,500 to 4,000, so it is pretty strong single target healing. And on top of the interruption resistance increase, her defensive utility is actually going to be pretty good, which is one of the strong points about Vodyanitsa, and arguably her only strong point. And her unconditional Hydro and Cryo res shred that effectively lasts around 21 seconds. I'm not exactly sure when her last microphone hit happens, but it should be around that. Also very good, and especially with the fact that she can be an Onimo replacement for some teams. Her res shred here is about as effective as using an Onimo unit for Viridescent and only getting one swap, which does happen in some teams, so it's nice that her shred is at least relative to that. Now going into her elemental burst, it has such a beautiful animation. It might actually be my favorite one in the game, but it sucks and you are probably never going to use it. All the burst does is Hydro damage, and it deals more damage if your skill is active while casting it, but because of how you build our Little Mermaid over here, which mostly ignores building crit, on top of the fact that the scalings just aren't that high, this burst just isn't worth using at all in almost any situation, unless you're stalling for rotation time. Now getting into the combat passives, which also holds a lot of the strength for Vodyanitsa, her Ascension 1 makes it so that when you're playing her in Stellar Swirl teams, and there's a Stellar Swirl Vortex present, the Onimo resistance of nearby enemies is decreased by 30%. And before you ask, no, Vodyanitsa does not enable Stellar Swirl, but she has a passive relating to it, and this passive does absolutely nothing if you aren't playing her in a Stellar Swirl team. And I just love not having a passive when not being played in a team archetype that I don't even enable. I guess this is kind of an issue with them handing out Cryo Traveler for free, because since Cryo Traveler is free, it means they can add stuff like this to limited characters kits, and they technically aren't locking you out of anything. But I really hope there's pushback on this, as her passive should just not be like this. It's ridiculous. It should do something else on top of the 30% shred, or she should be able to enable Stellar Swirl reactions. Now regarding Vodyanitsa's second combat passive, she gives 17 quills to the on-field character and 10 quills to off-field characters. This is based on her HP over 40k, and only Cryo and Hydro characters will be able to use these quills. But if you're in a Stellar Swirl teams, Hydro and Cryo characters can no longer use these quills, and the quills will only take effect when Stellar Swirl damage is dealt. And it has to specifically be direct Stellar Swirl damage. It cannot be reaction Stellar Swirl damage. I can't even hate, her quills are actually quite strong. Vodyanitsa can be played in freeze teams, and her quills do add a lot of damage, even more than Shenhe, especially since it can buff the Hydro characters as well, like Furina. And in Stellar Swirl teams, it does suck that they can't be be used by reaction Stellar Swirl damage, because with someone like Vesna this is completely fine, as she does so many Stellar Swirl hits. But if you look at someone like Mizuki, she only does around 7 Stellar Swirl hits, so she can't even fully take advantage of all of Vodyanitsa's quills, so that is a way to give her better synergy with Vesna over Mizuki, which is honestly fine if they wanted to do that. It just doesn't really feel that good, I guess. And it's kind of why Vodyanitsa isn't really a Stellar Swirl support, she's a Vesna support that just happens to also buff Stellar Swirl damage, because Vesna deals Stellar Swirl damage. And with her kit discussed, I'm just going to rip the band-aid off. Vodyanitsa being Hydro hurts her teams so bad, while Freeze to a lesser extent. But even in Freeze teams, Cryo Resonance is very strong, as it's just an extra free crit rate boost, which is significantly more consistent when you're playing in triple Cryo teams. As with Furina's semi-slow application, there are very little times where your Cryo aura is going to be messed up around every 3 seconds or so. Specifically against bosses, by the way, or unfreezable enemies. This doesn't really apply to freezable enemies, but Cryo Resonance consistency being messed up does suck, and is why something I've been saying for a while is that I would rather have Skirk's last lot be a Cryo character instead, but whatever. At the very least, Furina will get her burst back more consistently. But even extending that note, I don't know why they tried to make her a freeze buffer, or at least if they were trying to make her a freeze buffer, why did they choose the worst 2 stats to give to a Skirk team? Freeze teams already had a 100% uptime, 55% res shred already, and for those of you who are unaware, res shredding is one of the few stats in Genshin that has actual true diminishing returns, as once you reach under 0% res shred on an enemy, every percentage of res shred from that point on will be halved. For example, if you look at something like Verdescent, and you take a standard 10% resistant enemy, the first 10% of that res shred will be completely unaffected, and then for the remaining 30% of Verdescent, that is going to be halved. So from that 40% res shred on an enemy with 10% base resistance, you effectively only have a minus 25% res shred instead of a minus 41. And because you're most likely going to be playing Vodyanitsa and Skirk teams, her res shred isn't even effectively the 24 to 26%. It's more like adding 13% extra res shred instead. And for content where enemies have really high resistance, there can be some cases in which you want a lot more res shred. It's just that Effie's 55% res shred is already so high, to the point I can't think of that many high res enemies where this would really be an issue anyways. It would have been significantly more impactful if she just gave Skirk a different buff. And then with the quills, again, they are pretty strong, and having 17 of them is nice, but we're giving quills to Skirk who already has some of the highest motion values in the game. Quills typically benefit characters that have much lower scalings. I once again don't see a reason why we're just giving Skirk stronger quills, when once again, attack buffs are the buffs that Skirk is lacking in most of her teams. It would have been nicer to just buff that instead. And then moving into Stellar Swirl teams, her being Cryo also hurts a lot, as with the way Stellar Swirl teams are built up, at least currently in the 2 Onimo 2 Cryo pairing, Vodyanitsa is always going to disrupt this. If she replaces the Onimo unit, as I said with Skirk before, she's going to ruin the Cryo Resonance consistency, and since she isn't an Onimo unit, you are also most likely going to lose your Verdescent character, which technically isn't the worst thing in the world, because as I said prior, her res shredding is equal to about Verdescent with 1 swap, but in teams where you could have double swapped for VV like most Mizuki teams, it just sucks because you are losing some shred in that case. And also the energy requirements of characters like Vesna also get worse due to this, to the point where it becomes more optimal to just use their burst every other rotation instead of using them every rotation, which you could do consistently with some characters like Farazan or some Sucre setups. So you may be thinking, oh, let's just lose the second Cryo character instead. And well, now great, we just don't get Cryo Resonance at all, which is one of the strongest resonance effects in the game. Oh, and I forgot to mention, for both teams, the little amount of Hydra application that Vodyanitsa provides is enough to completely offset some of your reaction damage from Stellar Swirl, even for freezable enemies, to the point where you can lose 1 to 2 vortexes per rotation, or some of your vortexes don't go to level 3, which massively impacts the reaction damage of some of your teams. So instead of Vodyanitsa just buffing Stellar Swirl teams, most of the time she's being placed there to offset the damage that her being Hydro causes, which could have been fixed if she either just didn't apply her element at all, or was just Cryo, in which case she would be a significantly better unit. The decision to make her Hydro just baffles me so much. And I guess we can start talking about and getting into the calculations, in which I improved some calculations from my last video, and also regarding the same thing I said in the last video as well, I will be using R1 refinements of the new gacha weapons that are very good. If you dislike that, then I apologize, but I just think it's more fair to evaluate the characters like this. The new sword is an amazing DPS stat stick for Vesna. You can pause to read what it does, and the new gacha bow is one of the greatest buffing weapons we have, especially for how cheap the requirements for said buff are. Both increases individually are like 6 to 7% better than the free-to-play alternatives, so if you're wondering why some of my Vesna or Mizuki calculations may be higher than other people's, this is going to be the reason why, most likely. Or they are old calculations that haven't factored in just how badly Vodyanitsa messes up Stellar Swirl reaction damage. Speaking of which, starting with Vesna, here's a calculation comparing how good Vodyanitsa is compared to replacing Cryo Traveler, in which, compared to what I showed yesterday, when factoring for how badly she messes up the Stellar Swirl reaction damage, she is still even weaker than a C2R3 Traveler, so she'll be debuting worse than Traveler, who is a free character, and this gap is going to become so much bigger when we are able to max out the Traveler. But one thing that is important to say is that if you do not use Vodyanitsa, then that means you do have to run a sustainless team with her, as Vodyanitsa is a sustain where Cryo Traveler obviously isn't, and I guess that could be the tax for running a stronger team, or at least slightly stronger at a C2R3 level, in which case, sure, but at the same time, if we're following that line of logic, you can actually just put Chi-Chi in Cryo Traveler's place instead, in which case Vodyanitsa is only a slight upgrade over Chi-Chi, where Chi-Chi is a free character, and Vodyanitsa is someone you have to go out of your way to spend pulls for. And if you are going to be adding one limited thing to your team, it is better for you to get something like C1 of Odette, or smarter, since Vesna and Vodyanitsa are going to be in the same patch anyways, if you have the pulls to be going for Vodyanitsa, you could instead just try and get Vesna's weapon instead, which is significantly more impactful than getting our Little Mermaid over here, and is potentially even a better long-term investment in case any of the supports in Vesna's team get replaced. And getting a 5-star weapon is cheaper than getting a limited character. So in that case, why would you ever look to be pulling for Vodyanitsa for your Vesna, when she's completely anti-synergistic with the team, and she also doesn't increase the team DPS by much anyways? And also here's a calculation of her replacing Farzan, in which she is worse than a C6 Farzan. But once again, she does add some sort of sustain to the team, so the comparison isn't completely fair if you want to make the argument. So for Vesna, I don't really see a point in going out of your way to pull for the mermaid, as she just isn't an impactful increase to this team over using Chi-Chi, and you would much rather get things like Odette's constellations or Vesna's own constellations or weapons. And for Mizuki, the exact same trend happens here. If not, this is putting Vodyanitsa in a worse situation, as Mizuki doesn't get to consume all of her quills, so she's adding less damage to the team. And not only that, when Mizuki needs the healing, she can use her elemental burst for that, so there's no reason to replace someone like Cryo Traveler with Chi-Chi, as Mizuki is already a sustain in her own right. And once again, we get the same trend, to where Vodyanitsa is just going to be worse than replacing Cryo MC or Farzan, so there's no reason to get her for the purpose of playing Mizuki, as she just makes Mizuki teams weaker. So for both the Stellar Swirl carries, I just don't think there's any worth to playing Vodyanitsa there, or at least pulling for her. She either makes the team worse, or you're better off getting different upgrades. And now we can talk about Skirk, and more specifically freeze teams, as this is something Vodyanitsa also buffs, technically. And good news for once, Vodyanitsa is technically an upgrade over Skirk's other 4th slow options. She is just better than Shenhe and Sitlali, and should also be better than even a C4 Mona. So as a baseline to Skirk's team, she is going to be a decent upscale, and brings Skirk to around Flintz's level of power, so good, yay. The only issue is that at this point in the game, everyone most likely already has a Skirk team established, in which you've got your Furina, you got your Escoffier, and so on. And if you don't have Furina or Escoffier, Vodyanitsa is the weakest thing to get. She is the lowest priority teammate out of the three of them, and even if you are in a situation where you're using Skirk and you have Fiorina and Escoffier, and let's say you're using someone like Shenhe, the sad thing is that, like with Vesna, instead of pulling for Vodyanitsa, from the baseline team you already have, getting Skirk's signature weapon would be a better upgrade, getting Skirk's C1 would be a bigger upgrade, and getting Escoffier or Fiorina's C1 would also be bigger upgrades. So once again, it would be better for you to just skip Vodyanitsa's banner and just save until one of these characters rerun with their vertical investments. And as you can see from the list of individual impacts of each of Skirk's vertical investments, even when you do get things like a few constellations on some of your characters, the better route might still be going for the C2 of those characters before you even consider getting Vodyanitsa. So if you wanted a Skirk improvement, there are so many other things you can do, and Vodyanitsa is almost always the worst thing you can do at that time. So again, I'm genuinely not trying to shit on this character, but I cannot recommend her to anyone. Her kit incentivizes supporting two different team archetypes, and she just isn't good at either. Well, she's technically good at being a free support, but there's just so many other things you would rather do first before you consider getting her. I guess if you're someone who only cares about expanding your character roster and you do happen to have a freeze team, then she's nice in that case. Or if you really just don't like Escoffier, she can also technically replace her despite being 10k DPS worse. I don't know. TLDR, I do not think Vodyanitsa is a good character, and I do not think she is someone you should pull for unless she gets buffed. I'm releasing this video a day before version 2 goes live. Hopefully she gets buffed. Otherwise, this is like actually one of the worst characters we've had released in a long time. In which case, meta reasons aside, I am fine with Genshin releasing weaker characters. I don't really have that much of a problem with it. A lot of people made power creep jokes and whatnot. Like, if Vodyanitsa is just a weak character, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with the game slowing down and controlling power creep. It's just that my channel is based on trying to help people evaluate characters the best, as well as recommendations for how you would build your account. And from that lens specifically, regardless of how she affects and impacts the game's design, Vodyanitsa is a weak character. That is what I'm trying to talk about. Me saying she needs to be buffed is not me saying I support and love power creep. It's just me trying to say that from an evaluation standpoint of how good this character is, and as a recommendation of if you should pull for her, you shouldn't pull for Vodyanitsa unless she gets buffed. I do not hate or have an agenda against Vodyanitsa. She is just a weak character. But with that, I have nothing else to say, so thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on her, as I'd love to hear it and I just want to miss every single comment. Channel members, thank you so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. I love you all. I can't wait for version 2 tomorrow to change everything about this character's kit so I look stupid. Thank you to everyone else for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace.